Greetings, brothers and sisters in Christ. We come to the fourth Sunday of Lent. This is Latere Sunday. It's Rejoice Sunday. You'll notice that the priest and ministers will have on the rose-colored or pink-colored vestments. The word Latere comes from what is called the introit of the Mass, and it's usually a scriptural proclamation that leads us into the mystery of what this Eucharist is about. Every Eucharist is about the Paschal mystery of Jesus Christ, his living, suffering, dying, and rising. But especially today, the Church directs us to rejoice in the midst of our Lenten journey because Easter is coming. And we prepare for all those mysteries of Holy Week, and we know Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, and in the midst of our self-denial, he directs us in everything that we do. Today's first reading is from the second book of Chronicles. This is the only time in 3 years that we hear from this book. And so I think it's important. If you go back and look at the book of Chronicles, it kind of scans the history of Israel. And the purport of the book is that the people of Israel have been chosen by God to be a special people. And they've been chosen by God to be a light to the nations. Their job is to attract all of humanity to come together in one reign, on one mountain, as one people in the holy city of Jerusalem. The covenant that God made with them, the commandments given to them, are to guide them in this endeavor. But what happens? We know that our frail humanity interrupts time and time again. So for example, we hear Israel is supposed to be the chosen people, but today's first reading says they added infidelity to infidelity, practicing all the abominations of the nations. So God is faithful, God is faithful. The people are unfaithful, they are unfaithful. So this teaches us, how does God respond to us and how do we react to God? We continue to try to live up to God's way, but all of us are sinners and all of us fail. So what does God do? God sends prophet after prophet after prophet in order to remind us and call us back to the covenant and back to our destiny to be a light to the nations. And what happens? We mocked his messengers of God, despised his warnings, and scoffed at his prophets. We human beings have trouble with that. Here we find God who seems to be angry. God is not emotional, so God's anger is not like ours, just like God's love is not romantic like ours. God's reaction to us is a choice. God has chosen us to be God's people, and we have drifted aside. So the anger of God in the Hebrew Scriptures might be understood as being God's deep desire to want to set things right with us. So sometimes you have to tear down a house in order to build it up. God does that with us. So on this Lenten journey, let us let God rebuild us into God's people.